Yes, man.
From Peter, but he has no intention of answering. Welcome to Movie Caps.
I'll give it a try.
Today I will show you a comedy, romance film from 2008, titled Yes Man. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. Carl gets barraged with calls from Peter, but he has no intention of answering them. After all the calls he ignores, he accidentally picks up the phone and pretends to be in his apartment despite the fact that he's in a video rental store. After an invitation to go out, Carl says he can't because he's too busy. But Peter knows Carl is simply making excuses since he is spotting him standing in line at the video store. Carl continues to insist that the man at the shop is not him, despite the fact that he caught him. Peter manages to pull him to a bar. The reason Peter invites Carl and his friend is to announce Peter's engagement to Lucy, his now fiancée. They will have an engagement party in a few days. At the same bar, Carl's expression changes when he sees his ex-wife Stephanie with his new boyfriend. He feels agitated and decides to leave, just as she approaches him and makes for an uncomfortable encounter and an oopsie moment. Carl's neighbor Tilly offers him breakfast, which he refuses with all sorts of excuses. Outside, he rejects a concert flyer handed to him. Even at work, Carl's buddy and supervisor Norman invites him to his costume party at his house, but again Carl says he is going to be out of town, before Norman tells him the date. Norman then mentions it will be on Friday, but that's obviously the date Carl will be out of town. He also turns down numerous loan applications from his clients. Carl is a stubborn, mild-mannered individual. During an outdoor lunch break, Carl suddenly runs into an old friend, Nick. They tell each other about their lives. Nick tells him about a seminar that changed his life, like climbing a mountain or shooting a cow with a bazooka. Not proud of it, but he did it. He advises Carl to try it, since he looks miserable. Carl declines. Nick tells him he needs to loosen up and tells him to ask him to throw a rock at the bank window, and he does. As he is running away, he tells him to visit the seminar and he will not regret it. After turning down an unknown caller, an orange vendor, some flyers, and more loan applications, he spends his after-work time watching TV as he usually does. Carl notices Peter's call but does not take it. Peter arrives at Carl's place, frustrated that his friend did not show up for his engagement party. After all the arguing, he leaves Carl, who has always been looking for an excuse for his faults, and tells him that he will end up a lonely guy if he does not change his life. Peter and Rooney go to Carl's shortly after and find his friend dead on the couch in his apartment. However, it turns out to be a dream. Carl gets anxious about the dream, so he looks at the brochure Nick gave him and decides to attend the seminar. He clearly feels like a fish out of water. Nick notices Carl before the seminar begins and decides to sit next to him. Nick convinces Carl that his life will change after hearing from a motivational speaker. Terrence starts the seminar and says, "Yes is a really powerful word. The word has the ability to absorb the good energy of life, and those who speak it can get anything they want." Terrence invites a newcomer to the podium and Nick immediately points to Carl. He becomes agitated because every time he says no, the crowd yells no man at him. Carl continues to refuse to climb to the top of the podium, but then Terrence sprints up to him.
Jesus.
He tells Carl that he knows he has no friends or a relationship because he leads a repetitive and boring life. Terrence gets uncomfortably close and asks him to make a promise that he will say yes to any opportunity that comes his way, and if Carl breaks the promise, everything in his life will fall apart. Carl eventually goes along with the deal. That is some cultish persuasion going on. As Carl is about to get into his car, a homeless man approaches him and asks for a ride. Nick notices this and rushes over to Carl to remind him of his promise to say yes. Carl tells him to get in and the homeless man asks Carl to borrow his phone. Since Nick is still in the picture, he cannot say no. When they arrive at their location, the man tells him that he had good luck lately outside of the Yes Hotel and asks for all of Carl's money. Carl reluctantly says yes,
Holy Ghost
and the man
videos,
eventually leaves. Just as he is about to drive off, his car comes to a halt in the middle of nowhere on an empty road. His phone's battery is dead. Carl gets angry and curses at the seminar he attended. Carl heads to the gas station irritated. At the gas station, he notices a beautiful woman named Allison. She takes a pity picture of him talking to himself. They chat a bit and Carl tells her about the tragedy he suffered. Allison then offers to drive him to his car. On the scooter, in the middle of the road, Allison takes a picture of them and performs a maneuver that should not be done on a road. Carl looks amused as he fills up his car.
Classic.
Then he jokes about making out and she kisses him, and gives him the photo she took earlier. He realizes that saying yes has got him into a better situation. Later he receives a call from Norman asking if he can come to work today. It's Saturday. He says yes to every opportunity he gets at work, including an ad from a company you would normally ignore. He also approves of a loan application for someone who wanted to start a portrait cake business, something I would have definitely turned down. He tells Norman about this loan, and he thinks it's good that Carl is showing some initiative and tells him about the promotion talks. Two of them bond. That night, Carl meets his friends Peter and Rooney and tells them about the seminar and how things have changed after he started saying yes to everything. They take advantage of it and open a tab in his name, getting him drunk and staging bizarre acts. At the bar, he kisses a random stranger and her boyfriend intervenes and tells him they need to take it outside. Once outside, Carl is barely on his feet. He gets punched in the liver and his friends break up the fight, but Carl still taunts him by telling his GF to call him. The next sunny morning, Tilly asks Carl to put up a shelf in her house. She appreciates Carl's help and offers to pay him for his work, but she is out of money and approaches him telling how handsome he is. Instead of cash, she offers him a release. Carl is uncomfortable and refuses. Then bad things start happening to Carl as he leaves Tilly's house. Carl thinks it's because he turned down Tilly's offer. He returns and I'll leave the rest to your imagination. His belief in saying yes grows stronger. He says yes to everything: Norm's Harry Potter costume party invitation, Girl Scouts, guitar lessons, flying lessons, Korean language lessons, helping the homeless, and concert flyers he kept turning down. In the evening, Carl goes to the bar for a concert from the flyer. It turns out that Allison is there. Carl's expression brightens. She performs for 5 people. Some songs were actually good. He is waiting at the bar counter after Allison finishes her performance. He pretends not to notice her.
It is Zoe.
Allison notices him and says hi. She tells him that she has to work early in the morning as a running photography trainer. She asks Carl if he wants to come along, and he says yes. They share a very lovely moment together. When Carl is about to sleep, Rooney suddenly calls him to go for an all-nighter party. And of course, Carl
Zoe
says
is
yes.
D-tier.
The next day he comes to Allison's class from a rave with loud music and tons of Red Bull cans. He says he's very excited to attend her class. Carl runs fast while taking pictures with his phone. Midway through the run, the energy of the Red Bulls has left him and he passes out and becomes the object of a photo.
Your name is Bouncy Butts. You need some fucking help, man. You need to get yourself some fucking help, dumbass.
For the other participants. When Carl comes to his senses, Allison seems to be attracted to him because of his seemingly erratic lifestyle. Carl has lunch with Faranush and Peter. He met Faranush on a Persian website for finding a wife, one of the ads where he clicked yes to meet her. Carl tells Peter that the magic word yes is the reason he met Allison. Lucy shows up and tells them that she does not have anyone to help her with her bridal shower. Finally, Peter asks Carl to go with her since he always says yes. Lucy is shocked because she genuinely disliked Carl because of his negative attitude. Later, Carl and Allison attend Norman's Harry Potter costume party. Is his suit toddler size? The party was nerdy and everyone watched one of the Harry Potter movies. I mean, a couple of movies. Somehow they managed to slip out of there. They decide to do some breaking and entering in a concert hall and have a special moment on the stage. A bit later, they are discussing things like the world being a playground that everyone forgets about it when they grow up, responsibilities and so on, when suddenly a security guard arrives and they scatter. Carl greets the line debtors in the morning and hands them oranges, presumably from the vendor. His friend Lee is already waiting in his office. Suddenly Norman calls Carl out and tells him that someone from headquarters wants to talk to him about all the loans he has approved. Carl asks for a minute before meeting with the HQ person. He returns to Lee to approve his presumably last loan application. Finally, Carl meets with Wesley, the vice president of the company he works for. Wesley says that a loan officer usually makes 35 to 40 loans each month, but Carl has already made 561 loans, slightly more than the average. In the midst of the tension, Wesley suddenly laughs. Carl and Norman follow his laugh. It turns out that 98% of the debtors have paid off their debts, giving the company big profits. Carl is offered to work at the HQ. Don't have to tell you what his answer is. As promised, Carl shows up to help Lucy prepare for her wedding. The clerk at the store seems irritated to help them. When a clerk expresses her dissatisfaction in Korean, Carl's Korean skills come in handy. He asks her in Korean what's wrong, and the clerk explains that she's jealous of a married couple and wonders when she'll be the bride. After Carl cheers her up, she helps them with their matters. A man bursts through the store entrance shouting that someone is ready to jump off a ledge. Carl goes over immediately. At the scene, someone shouts to help the man, which is Carl's cue. He runs up the stairs and tries to talk him out of it when the man tells him not to try and stop him. Carl becomes confused about what to do, as he can't say no. In the apartment, he finds a guitar. Carl starts singing and playing the guitar to calm the man down. The man and the bystanders sing along with Carl. Finally, he drags the man into the apartment. When Carl is at the airport, he runs into his ex-wife Stephanie, who says she saw Carl save a man's life on TV. After they say goodbye, she looks back as if she misses him. Carl and Allison arrive at the ticket counter and ask for the fastest departure scheduled. The ticket clerk tells them that the fastest scheduled flight is to Nebraska. So they fly to Nebraska. They visit a telephone museum, a shooting field, and a football game that Carl's friends are watching. Their next stop is the chicken slaughterhouse. As the instructor describes how to cut off a chicken's head, Carl faints. Later, Allison and Carl are walking together when it suddenly starts to rain. He wraps Allison in his jacket and runs to a barn. When they arrive, Allison looks at Carl warmly and confesses that she loves him, and tells him that she wants to live together. Carl thinks it's a big move for both of them. Allison starts to regret what she said. He doesn't want to make her sad, so he convinces her that he also wants to live with her. At the airport, 2 FBI agents approach them. They are suspicious about Carl's activities, like purchasing random tickets, visiting dating websites, learning to fly an aircraft, and taking Korean courses. Carl is puzzled and seeks Peter's assistance as his lawyer. Peter tells the FBI that his friend once attended a seminar that required him to say yes to everything. Allison, who heard Peter's explanation, becomes disappointed and annoyed. She thinks Carl has been with her all this time because he always has to say yes to all her requests. He tries to explain to Allison that he is completely sincere to her. She ignores him and leaves. Back at the airport in LA, Carl tries to talk to her, but she just tells him to stay away, which he does. He's back to his old self, watching movies at home. Allison will not take his calls. Carl tries to distract himself with a bungee jump when Wesley calls, which he answers while still hanging. He tells him that HQ has decided to close the branch where Carl used to work. Carl visits Norman to tell him the sad news. As he listens to his voicemails, he looks around his cluttered apartment, dissatisfied. One of the messages is from Peter, reminding him of the bridal shower tomorrow night. Carl is distraught because he has completely forgotten about it. Carl somehow manages to throw a huge party to which he invites everyone he knows. Lucy and Peter are shocked that so many people are attending their wedding shower. Carl notices Norman sitting glumly at the counter and wonders if he's okay now that the branch is closed. To cheer him up, Carl invites his Korean friend he met at the store, and introduces them to each other. They become friends and have a good time. Lucy shows Carl that he has done a good job. Nevertheless, in the middle of the celebration, Carl tries to call Allison, but she declines the call. Rooney is introduced to Tilly and she asks him for his help with some shelves, if you know what I mean. When Carl gets home, Stephanie calls him and asks him to come over. She tells Carl that she and Ted had a big fight and he stormed off. Stephanie asks Carl to stay the night, but Carl says no. When he leaves, he has a run of bad luck. The elevator he is in suddenly breaks down. Carl becomes extremely paranoid and gets scared of a cat that makes him bump into someone else's car. His car is towed away and he begins to hallucinate. Carl hides in Terrence's car. Terrence panics when Carl unexpectedly shows up in his car and causes an accident that lands them both in the hospital. The reason he wants to meet with Terrence is to undo the promise they made. Terrence then reveals that the deal was a bluff. The word yes should be used to open up to people and then the decision should be based on your heart. Carl asks Rooney what time it is, and when he hears it's early morning, he storms out of the room.
Why?
On his way, he runs into Lee and asks to borrow his ride. Thanks to Carl's earlier approval of the loan, he now owns a Ducati motorcycle. Carl rides off while still wearing the patient's clothes and exposing his booty. Carl crashes Allison's class, entering like a badass. He tells her that he does not want to live with her. That kind of decision takes time. He explains that what he did was wrong and that he misinterpreted Terrence's words all along. He tells her that he would not have met her if he had not said yes to everything. He praises her on how great she is and they reconcile with a long, passionate kiss. The end. Thank you for watching.
That's the place in GTA.
Subscribe if you'd like to see more videos
just like
this.
it. Is it not?
Welcome to Movie.
It's the same.